The Business Confidence Index for the second quarter of 2021 was released today, and it came in at an astounding 50 index points. Ettienne, please tell me your thoughts on this.
Yeah, it's impressive, Siobhan, no doubt. Just remember, a year ago, at the height of the pandemic, the Business Confidence Index dropped to a record low of 5 points. Today, we're at 50. That's a very strong increase in a relatively short space of time. And I think it's good news. I think it's also good news to the extent that confidence rose in all of the 5 sectors that make up the BCI. And in the quarter, increases were actually quite significant.
So tell us a little bit more about the detail underlying these sectors. What happened?
Sure.
Who's looking good?
So we cover 5 sectors in the survey. Manufacturing, obviously being one, retailers, wholesalers, building contractors, and new vehicle dealers. There's definitely a bit of a consumer theme developing here, because sectors that have really benefited over the last year or so has been retailers, wholesalers, particularly of consumer goods, and new vehicle dealers. And it's also those sectors that have shown significant increases and improvement in sentiment. Less so is the building and construction sector. Now, as you know, this is a sector that has been battling for years prior to COVID-19, and that's sadly still the case. So confidence is still a very low 22 index points, while in the case of manufacturing, it sits close to 50, and in the remaining 3 sectors, all well above 50 in net positive terrain. So all round, a good result. I think very importantly, improving sentiment, that what you've seen over the last year, gels very nicely with the rebound in economic activity that we've seen since the second quarter of last year.
Indeed. It is looking quite rosy. So is it up from here?
A good question. Look, there are uncertainties, and we have to acknowledge that. Just think about the virus that is very quickly spreading again. There's the threat that the government might impose additional or reimpose additional restrictions. Eskom's electricity grid looks very unstable. And then there's the threat of industrial action. These factors combined can very easily knock confidence back below the neutral mark. Still, that being said, what is encouraging is the fact that confidence is firmly in an upward trend. And I think it gels very nicely with the economy, as I suggested earlier, that is in a relatively strong cyclical rebound from the record lows that we've seen last year. Well, let me pose the question to you. What does that translate into in terms of an actual growth rate for 2021, considering the fact that you now have a bit of guidance in terms of the second quarter? And just an hour ago, we had the first quarter GDP data. So if you put all of these together, tell me, what does it mean in terms of an actual forecast for growth this year?
I think it bodes quite positively for our growth this year. We have said, we saw the economy fall so dramatically last year. So good growth does not necessarily translate into the size of the economy being the same as it was prior to the pandemic. And I think that is something that we have to be cautious about when we are optimistic about the growth rates we're seeing. However, I think that the BCI print of 50 does suggest that we're going to see continued robust growth in the second quarter in, as you say, particularly the retail sectors, and even improvements in manufacturing, which does pose quite a strong upside risk to our expectation for growth of 3.7% this year.
So you've got 3.7% for this year with upside risk. Context is still important though. 4% looks very good as a growth rate, but we contracted 7% last year. So we still have a way to go to make up for all the output that we've lost last year.